Abram, who later becomes Abraham, was a man chosen by God to start a new nation, and his story begins in an ancient city called Ur. Abram lived with his family, his father, Terah, and his brothers, Nahor and Haran. Abram was married to a woman named Sarai, but they had no children. Over time, the family moved from Ur to a place called Haran, where they settled for a while. One day, God spoke directly to Abram and asked him to do something very brave, to leave behind his country, his family, and his father's house and go to a new place that God would show him. Although it would be difficult to leave everything familiar behind, God made a special promise to Abram. He told him, "I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. You will be a blessing, and all the families of the earth will be blessed because of you." This promise meant that Abram's family would grow into a large group of people who would be respected, honored, and bring good things to the world. Abram trusted God and decided to obey. He packed up all his things, took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, their servants, and all their animals and belongings, and set out on a journey, even though he didn't know exactly where he was going. When Abram arrived in a land called Canaan, God spoke to him again, saying that this land would one day belong to his descendants, even though he and Sarai didn't have any children yet. Abram believed God's promise and built an altar there to thank God and worship him. After some time, a famine struck Canaan, meaning there wasn't enough food. Abram and Sarai decided to go to Egypt to find food. Abram became worried that the Egyptians might harm him because Sarai was very beautiful. To protect himself, he asked Sarai to tell people she was his sister instead of his wife. Because of this, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, took Sarai into his palace. But when Pharaoh learned that Sarai was actually Abram's wife, he was upset and sent them away from Egypt. When Abram and Lot returned to Canaan, they both had so many animals and belongings that it became difficult to live close together peacefully. Their servants began to argue over land and water, so Abram suggested they separate to avoid conflict. He let Lot choose his land first, and Lot picked the fertile area near a city called Sodom, where the people didn't follow God. Abram settled in a different part of the land. Despite his wealth and land, Abram still had no children, and he wondered how he could become the father of a great nation without any descendants. God reassured Abram by asking him to look up at the stars in the night sky. He told him, "Look at the stars, Abram. If you can count them, that's how many descendants you will have." Abram trusted God's words, and because of his faith, God considered him righteous. When Abram was 99 years old, God made a special promise with him, called a covenant. God promised again that Abram would be the father of many nations, even at his old age. He changed Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of many, and Sarai's name was changed to Sarah, meaning princess. God also promised that Sarah would have a son named Isaac, through whom many blessings would come. Abraham's story teaches us about trust and faith. Even when things seemed impossible, he believed in God's promises, and through his trust, he played an important role in God's plans for the future. This story is the beginning of many events and promises that would unfold through Abraham and his family. This is found in Genesis chapters 12 through 17.